Greetings, everyone. Dale Parrish, host COS today, along with Ken Kashuba, co-host. Ken, are we on? Is everything set? Did we make it? Did we do it right this time?
We are live and counting down, Dale. Fire away.
All right, all right. If you all recall, we had a little problem last time, and I guess it was my fault. So hopefully we got it all correct this time. So, Ken, we got a good show lined up for everyone tonight. We got a couple good guests coming on here, and we'll get right to it very, very soon here. So just very, very quickly, we don't always do this, but this is episode number 309. And Ken, you've been along for 167 of them. So we keep racking them up, don't we?
Yeah, keep rolling along,
All right, all right. Well, guys, we want Maringo Mike to first of all remind you of something. So let's listen to Maringo Mike here.
Maringo Mike here, asking you to hit that like, subscribe, and especially that notification bell so you'll be reminded every time we go live. We really do appreciate your support. Now, back to our program.
All right, all right.
He does that so well. I don't know. He never misses.
He does. He
never stutters. I don't understand, Dale.
Well, let's bring our guests on this evening. This is our first segment. This is the In Focus segment that we have started some weeks ago. We've been doing this for a few weeks now, and I think it's been very good. I think we've had some good guests on, and the whole purpose of this segment, for those of you that maybe this might be the first time you're seeing it, the whole purpose of this is just to bring a couple guests on, and we all just talk about what do we have in focus? What are we focusing on in the world, in the news right now? And been very interesting. Everyone seems to have a different focus. So I think it's been very interesting. And I want to tell everyone we've got lined up some new guests coming up very, very soon. See, folks, Ken reminded me that all of our guests, including he and I, are old people. So we're going to take some steps here to bring on some young people.
I don't necessarily think that the old term is a good one, Dale. It's just wiser, experienced people.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Experienced people. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
But I agree. The point was, let's get some younger people on here and some viewpoints that are on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah. And because what they're in focus, what they are focusing on could be completely different from what we are focusing on.
That's for sure.
Due to our differences in ages. And so I think it's going to be very interesting. So anyway.
Well, the other thing, Dale, is I think by bringing them on and getting those viewpoints, it will make us even wiser.
It might make you wiser. That's true. It might make you wiser. Yes. That is
we're
true.
hoping, yeah.
Speaking of wiser, these two guests that we have tonight, they need help getting wiser. That's for sure. So let's bring them on here. First of is Mr. Ken Whaley out of Idaho. Hi, Ken.
How are you, Dale? Afternoon,
Good.
Ken.
Hi, Ken.
Ken K. Get that right.
Ken squared tonight.
There we go.
And then we've got Gary Harbaugh. Gary Harbaugh has been with us for a long time and has appeared from time to time.
Greetings, gentlemen.
So welcome to our In Focus segment. And Ken, let's Ken Kashu. I don't know how, Ken K. Let's you and I started out this evening because these two said they told us before the show started they had no idea what they were going to talk about.
There was too many topics to choose from, Dale. That's the problem.
Too many. I guess that was it. Yes. So. Yeah. Ken, I know you've got an interesting topic that you wanted to talk about, Ken K. So you go ahead.
All right, Dale. Yeah, on the last day or two that we are seeing once again, the federal government, i.e., Donald Trump and the executive branch of our government, looking to step in to a city like Washington, D.C., to address a rampant crime problem. And this is something that I want to expand a little bit on, because it's certainly within his power to do so. And the situation that revolves around these, I don't know whether you really call them gangs or what, but it's usually groups of those in the teenage age range that have been pretty much hitting the streets sometimes at 3 a.m. in the morning, and people are getting beaten. Cars are being carjacked. Things are being robbed, and so on and so forth. And the problem seems to be obviously a lack of concern over any consequences from the viewpoint of these younger set of people. And I want to branch out a little bit from that, because I know it's something that at this point, obviously, Trump is focusing on cleaning up our capital area. Obviously, a major attraction of tourism and people coming into the city. And you look at the beautiful monuments and the beauty of Washington, D.C., and people are afraid to walk around on the streets because of the problems that we have. And I want to just step back a little bit and say, as much as that's being addressed now by Trump and looking to bring in basically even the military if he needs to, but he's looking at the National Guard and actually taking control of the crime situation in Washington, D.C. And the D.C. mayor, claims, hey, we got this. We really don't need the feds coming in here. But I'm gonna step back a little bit and just talk a little bit about something on the local side here in Indiana. Indianapolis has had its own set of problems. And I will point to Indianapolis is run by a Democratic mayor. Again, the consequences and the charges and the bail. I mean, now Washington D.C. There's a no cash bail.
I understand that's an issue too. That in a lot of sanctuary cities.
Yeah, sanctuary city. But getting back to Indianapolis, we have our own set of problems here, and it's starting to get a little out of hand. I saw a video just the other day that was posted of a gentleman who obviously had some mental issues on a street in broad daylight downtown Indianapolis. That was for, I don't want to get too graphic with this, but he was basically urinating on the street in Indianapolis. Unheard of, basically, in previous years. Now, let me take it one step further and not point all directly at the Democrats, because just as over the weekend in Carmel, Indiana, one of the highest rated cities and the fastest growing cities in the United States, and a very valued place that's being targeted for people to come and live, had 5 teenagers that basically committed armed robbery, attempted murder, and 5 of them, all 5 of them had firearms. 4 of them were 17, 1 was 14. Now, this is a Republican, this is a Republican-run,
heavy Republican,
heavy Republican city, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I know it's already hitting the discussion works, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in Carmel, as well as Indianapolis and Washington, D.C. Because if Carmel decides, well, we're going to get a little tough on these kids, and maybe go to the point that they start holding the parents responsible, which is another thing that's been talked about a lot, then I'd be curious to see whether the Democratic mayor in Indianapolis steps up and does anything in the city of Indianapolis to take charge. So I don't know what you guys think, but really, I mean, I know Donald Trump wants to clean it up. He wants to step in there and do it fast. I don't know what's happened, but I guess my whole point about this is not just our big city problems. Obviously, it's bigger in the blue cities that Chicago and LA. It's going to be very large there and noticeable. But I think it's something that's a little bit more than just the policies, so to speak. We also have an issue with parental and on the younger side, basically a lack of moral and a lack of self-respect, I think, to a certain degree. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, the problem goes much deeper, doesn't it? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, Trump's being criticized as being a dictator, and he's gonna get a lot of flack over this, and the media is going to punish him for all this type of stuff. But I think it's trying to make these cities safer, and there's no doubt about it. That's got to be a winning issue. That has got to be a winning issue, it seems to me. Gary and Kim, what do you got? You guys have any opinion on this?
Oh, come on, Dale. I always have an opinion. Happy to jump in. Ken, you were talking about taking things that little bit deeper. And to me, a lot of that about the kids that young committing that level of violent crime, in essence, goes back to their education and the family structure. Two separate things. But education obviously has taught kids that they don't have to be responsible. They don't have consequences for their actions. And that goes all the way up through the universities. And without delving all the way down that rabbit hole, the other thing, of course, the breakdown of the family, which again is part of that whole left side Marxist movement, et cetera, where they're supplanting the family with the government or what they want to be the government, not our current, thank goodness. And that leads to people that feel they have that nothing's going to happen if they do anything, especially as teens, because they tend to be light impact of things, and then it all gets expunged or not visible once they turn 18. So they have this feeling of we can get away with whatever we want to do. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of that. So even in a quote red area, which you were talking about, and I'm afraid I don't remember the name, Caleb, I believe you said the name.
Carmel.
Sorry about that, sir. I don't know Indiana. What can I tell you? But to me, that would lead back to that type of thing, education and the lack of the morality within the family and being taught that there are consequences. Goes back for years and years about the whole helicopter pilot issues that went on for so long that, they hovered around to make sure things wouldn't happen to them, or if they did get in trouble, they were taken care of and they didn't feel the repercussions of bad choices.
And it's interesting you say that too, because when you get going back to the Carmel situation, a lot of people that were commenting on this were asking, well, are these kids coming in from the outside? Are they gangs? Are they coming up from Indianapolis? It turns out all 5 of them were from Carmel. So, this is a very upscale, very wealthy area. It's really kind of surprising that parents would let these kids out. Yeah.
Very surprising. Very surprising. All right. Gary, did you have any comments you wanted to make on this?
I do have a comment about this. So if you go back 50 years ago, Richard Nixon won the presidency in part running on this, he called it law and order. And it's the same thing that Trump is doing, is saying part of being in a civilized society is you expect to have some level of order and control on crime. And when crime is just out of control, you're talking about civilization is going downhill. And Donald Trump is not going to sit by and watch our civilization go downhill. He is saying we have got to fix this problem, not just in Washington, but everywhere. And that's a major part of getting the illegal immigrants who have been convicted of crimes, especially, out of this country, because he knows that this is a civilizational issue if you do not have crime under some method of some level of control of crime.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me go real quickly here on my topic. My in focus is the Speedway Slammer. You've all heard about that in the news, I'm sure. This is I just figured out, quite honestly, this evening where this is going to be located, and I think it's part of the Miami Correctional Facility, which is near Grissom Air Force Base, I guess, here in Indiana. I think the town is Bunker. Is it Bunker Hill, Indiana, or
Bunker Hill?
Bunker Hill, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Never been there. I don't know what this all looks like, but supposed to be 1,000-bed facility. And I guess there's going to be more of these facilities established. And when Ken Whaley was doing his Alligator Alcatraz presentation, I mentioned to him that Texas had a piece of land that they wanted to devote to this, called the Star Ranch, and so I don't know if that's still in the works or not, but I guess there's going to be more of these. But that one caught my attention, obviously being here in Indiana. Of course, the other thing that I catches my attention all the time, of course, that's the war in Gaza and the Ukraine war, and we got this meeting with Putin coming up in this week, this Friday. I got a question. These leaders, they seem to have to want to physically meet, and that makes it so that why don't they just do Zoom meetings? Why don't they? It'd be so much easier to do. Why do these physical meetups and all the security involved and all? Okay, Gary's got a comment on that. So go ahead, Gary.
Donald Trump wants to be able to look down at those guys and say, you need to solve this, because he's taller than both of them.
Maybe that
his presence his presence has a power and an aura about his presence. You just can't get that on a Zoom meeting, because you look at my power and presence and it just doesn't come through on this Zoom call.
Well, I would agree. I could see that. Yeah, I could see that.
To add another comment to the Zoom call, though, I mean, it's not uncommon for judges nowadays to hold a Zoom call on a prisoner who's in prison already, and
true.
Talk about his case or whatever on a Zoom call, rather than have the prisoner transported into court and so on and so forth. So it's already happening in a lot of areas like that.
My gut kind of tells me that it would lose some of the impact on a couple of points. One, from a media standpoint, most powerful people in the world coming together, banging away, trying to resolve some big issue that is obviously killing thousands or has killed hundreds of thousands in Ukraine. The whole aspect of Europe not being there, as well as in this case, Zelensky and any Ukraine individuals not being there. And to me, it just lends a lot more power to the whole thing. I don't disagree. It would certainly save us as taxpayers millions of dollars to not fly Trump and 85 other people to Alaska, let alone what Alaska goes through to bring all that together.
And I don't know this for a fact, but maybe a lot of these meetings leading up to this that are held by staffers and so forth, maybe a lot of those are Zoom meetings. That could very well be true.
Could be. And I realize too that a lot of those people are there at those final meetings to offer support, bring in notes, and so on.
Right.
How many people can you fit into a room around something the size of what we're staring at here, and make that be powerful? And again, I think to Gary's point, the presence of Trump. Let's face it, he kind of takes the oxygen out of a room when he walks in, like him or not. Yeah. He's just got that presence, as I think Putin does as well. But I think that's going to be the kind of the showdown there between those two, is whose presence and power comes across better.
All right.
We got a viewer's comment I want to put up. It's about our bit of segment so far. I just want to throw up. We've had a comment from a viewer I want to go ahead and show that here. It's from
Okay.
Sheila Mankin, I believe is her last name. I hope I didn't mispronounce
All right.
that, Sheila. But she says, what's distressing to me is how it seems nobody cares or even considers that there will be consequences. Amnesty International is even punishing Trump for deporting those who came into the country illegally. What is bad will be good idea from the Bible is what she's focusing on there. It's like the mostly watched news is brainwashing us into thinking no one cares that this is happening. Just let it happen and go along, or worse will be done. And that's her 2 cents.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Interesting.
Sheila.
Good point. Okay, Ken Whaley, what's your focus? Ben?
Well, one of the things that I have followed it for some time, even on my blog, Restore First Principles, that the amount of lawsuits that have come across mainly from the left, even though there have been a few from more mid or right leaning folks, as of yesterday when I researched some of this, 208 lawsuits since January 20th when Trump took office.
Oh, really? Oh my!
Oh, amazing number. And actually, I found a place that listed all of them, and I thought I can't. There's too many to even consider trying to get into breakdown, etc. It's just the sheer amount of is just unheard of in anywhere within the history of our country. Not even close. Of course, some of that has been negated when the Supreme Court came down on the district judges passing national holds on some of his executive orders. Excuse me. But it's still just something that gums the works, for lack of a better way to say it.
Yeah.
He has real trouble trying to get anything done. Personally, I think, and I'm going to sidestep slightly, that Trump not getting his second term right away after his first allowed him to prepare for this. I think they knew it was coming. They prepared for it. He's got all sorts of good lawyers on hand, let alone also getting rid of all the, shall we call it, rot that was around him for his first term, that kept him from being able to achieve many of the things he should have been able to achieve. But this same thing about so many lawsuits going on, just unheard of. And it is just, I can't think of a better term than clogging the system. And of course, that's what they're trying to do: delay, stall.
Right.
They know it's going to happen. It's kind of like the Democrats leaving Texas to not do the gerrymandering, the redistricting, I'll call it proper. It's going to happen. They're all either going to end up in jail or $10,000 fines or be thrown out of the legislation based on what I'm hearing. But just so much lawfare going on. And this doesn't take into consideration all the things that happened to Trump, excuse me, between his administrations from his first term to this term. The 34 different guilt accounts for falsifying business records, which have since been overturned. The judge, well, anyway, I shouldn't get too deep into that, but there have been so many things. And that's what amazes me. The man's still standing, the man's still going forward, still gives away his salary as president to charity. I mean, to me, it's a phenomenal thing. And I've just watched that number keep building over the last, 7 months or so. It'll be 7 months in a couple of days, about a week. And I just am fascinated by that. He just keeps plowing ahead. Part of this, I think, too, minor change of topic, I think it's like they're trying to play a game of whack-a-mole and keep up with him. So many executive orders, so much movement, so fast, so much more so than any administration in the history of our country.
What did I say? Did I see 184 executive orders he's issued?
I think I found over 90. There's been a bunch of things other than executive orders, but I think your number is in the ballpark there. Yes. Yeah. And of course, he's still doing more every day. And I think by the time they get rounded up and think, okay, we can fight this, he's already moved on 3 or 4 steps ahead. And just it goes back to the Sun Tzu teachings, about be where your enemy doesn't expect you to be and stay 1 or 2 steps. I'm synopsizing probably very poorly of his quotes, but I feel like that was what Trump has been doing, even with, I think it was 208 specific cases that they brought forth against his administration.
Wow. All right. Good, Ken. Gary, what's on your mind?
Well, the topic du jour is the Texas redistricting, which was mentioned by Ken. And I want to say something about redistricting, which is typically happens every 10 years after a census, but there's no, constitutional mandate that it can only take place every 10 years.
Yeah,
Well,
I was shocked to learn that myself. I thought the every 10-year was a carved in stone rule, but it's not, is it?
No, they have to count a census every 10 years and, reallocate the number of seats to different states if the populations have changed. But within the state, they can redistrict, I guess, really anytime they want.
Yeah.
And here's the thing to understand about redistricting. On election day, you choose your legislators. In redistricting, your legislators choose you. Because what they do is they study all of the election results from the past at the precinct level. They know how many vote Republican, how many vote Democrat, how many don't even vote at all in every single precinct in the state. And they study that. And your legislators, the party that's in control, picks the precincts and puts them together in such a way as to benefit their party. And the people out of power, they whine and cry, and they can't do anything about it. And this Texas thing, they're claiming the Voting Rights Act. Well, Voting Rights Act has been interpreted and misinterpreted and reinterpreted in a lot of different ways. But one of the things that the Voting Rights Act did that's a very negative is that they essentially, the idea was, well, they have to be set aside minority districts. Well, that's not really what the act says, as I understand it. But the thing is that they do not have to do that in the way that creates these districts that are very, very left-leaning or very right-leaning. And one of the things that's happened with the Voting Rights Act is we become more divided politically because they have put all the people who think alike together in this district and all the people who think alike the other way in another district. And instead of being able to elect kind of middle of the road candidates, you get far left candidates, far right candidates. And so you have this real division. And one of the things that would be good is to do away with the extremes of redistricting so that people would have candidates that are more inclined to kind of listen to both sides. That's part of what I think. I don't know. But I think what Texas is doing to gain Republican seats can probably be done in some other states as well. And the Democrats, they have nothing to cry about because if you look at some of the other states, it's like 40% of the people vote for the Republican Party or voted for Trump. And they've got, 10% of the seats in Congress. And so it's done in both states. And it's, it's just part of politics.
Yeah.
It's your elected officials choosing you because they know you're going to vote for them.
Hey,
Look
Gary,
at Massachusetts. Look at Massachusetts. Massachusetts doesn't have any Republican representation, and they got about 40% of the vote too. Trump did last time.
Yeah.
Hey, Gary, I'm curious, and I'm not put you on the spot, but I'm wondering if you've given any thought towards what can be done about that. I mean, it'd be one thing to only do it every 10 years, say pass legislation to do that. But if it can happen at any time, what real options does our government have to negate that kind of gerrymandering going on?
Good question.
They've been, I don't really know, but they've been, gerrymandering is, the terminology, the term I think came from the 1800s. So it's been going on for a long, long time. And it's always, the party that is in power within any state is going to, break up the state into districts in order to favor their party. And you might say the extremes, I think, is bad, but I don't think anybody's really going to solve that problem. It's part of part of being a, representative republic is that, politics is going to happen. Each side's going to try to maximize the benefit they get when they have control in a legislature.
I just wonder, are there any states that it's considered doing a good job at this? Maybe there's some states out there that are in fact handling it properly, doing a good job, and maybe that could be the way it ought to be done nationally. So there could be a state out there already doing it the proper way.
Well,
I don't know what that is.
Yeah. The academics always say that, you should appoint a, nonpartisan commission to draw
Right.
districts. Well,
Right.
Nobody wants that because the party that's in power wants to take advantage
Right. There's
of
no
having
sense.
power. And that's what elections are about, is allocating political power to people, and the people, hopefully, the elected people do a good job, then, their power grows over time. And if they do a bad job, they are experiencing, what the Democrats are experiencing right now.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. Well, guys, we're about out of time for this segment. So I want to thank you all for sharing with us what's in focus in your mind. And so, guys, thank you very much for participating tonight. Have a good evening.
Thanks
you.
for having us on, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Right.
Interesting discussion. I tell you, Ken, I really like this segment. I think I boys learned a lot, and I hopefully our viewers are appreciating it. So
It's kind of around the world in 30 minutes, is the way I've been seeing it.
it is, yeah. Well, listen, our next segment here is a presentation that our contributor, one of our contributors, Brett Sterling, who's done a lot of presentation for us. Not too long ago, the War Powers Act of 1973 was in the news. Of course, Trump getting criticized for it, and so forth, or misusing it or whatever. And so I asked Brett. I knew nothing, very, very little about it. I knew nothing about it. And I asked Brett if he would put together some information on this act and give us a presentation on it. So he did it. I caught up with him not too long ago, and we recorded this interview with him. So I want to jump into that right now, okay? For the state of Missouri. And Brett is going to talk to us about the War Powers Act of 1973. That's kind of been in the news here recently, hasn't it, Brett?
It definitely has been, for sure.
So, Brett, you take it away, and I'll try and keep up with you.
Okay. Well, we do have a lot of material to cover here, so I want to say, some on a factual basis, and then also probably conclude with a little bit of opinion and about the War Powers Act. But I guess we first need to probably start with the Constitution. That's always a good place to start. And in Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, that has to deal with the executive branch. And the Article 2, Section 2 says, the president shall be commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states. Okay, so that's
the militias of the several states as well. Okay, all right.
Militias of several states as well. Now that's not the state National Guard.
Oh, it's not.
But
Okay.
there are federal militias, so there are militias are different than the National Guard.
Okay.
Actually. So that's a pretty simple sentence, but it's always good to figure out what original intent is. What were the framers actually talking about? So this is addressed in a couple areas of the Federalist Papers, one specifically and one more generally. So we'll go to the specific one here first. Alexander Hamilton in Federalist 74 said, and some of the language is a little bit challenging, but I'll translate it into actual modern day English here, hopefully.
It is challenging to understand the language from that era, isn't it?
It is for sure. The verbiage is different. The meaning of words is different. Well, the meaning of words.
If you ever tried reading the Federalist Papers, it's difficult to understand.
Yeah, and the meaning of words are different today. The words meant what they're supposed to mean back then.
Right.
We've kind of changed them today. So, but Hamilton says in Federalist 84, said the propriety of this provision, speaking of what I just read in the Constitution, is so evident in itself. It is at the same time so consonant to the precedents of the state constitutions in general that little need be said or to explain or enforce it. Even those of them which have, in other respects, coupled the chief magistrate with a council, meaning more than one chief executive, which that was something that was discussed in the 1787 convention, whether we should have a singular executive or an executive council. So that's what this reference is for. Have, for the most part, concentrated the military authority in him alone, meaning that even states that said, hey, let's have an executive council in charge of our state, they still put the jurisdiction or the control of the military in a single individual. He goes on and he says, of all the cares or concerns of government, the direction of war is most peculiarly demands those qualities which distinguish the exercise of power by a single hand. The direction of war implies the direction of the common strength, and the power of directing and employing the common strength forms a usual and essential part of the definition of executive authority. Okay, so what does this mean? Basically, it means by tradition and practice, the military is under the direction of a solitary executive.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that the safety of a country is in greater jeopardy if the deployment of the military is left to the consensus of a council or a committee. So it is clear what the intent of Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution is. Now, going a little bit more generally, Hamilton writes in Federalist 68, and this is more about the general role of the executive. He says the executive should be independent for his continuance in office on all but the people in themselves. He might otherwise be tempted to sacrifice his duty to his complacence for those whose favor was necessary to the duration of his official consequence. Now, the English translation of that is that the independence of the chief executive from the legislative and the judicial branches is of primary importance, because if the chief executive is subservient to those other two branches instead of the people, then the chief executive will be more compelled to act in the interest of the legislative branch and the judicial branch instead of the will of the people. So that's of supreme importance.
Okay.
So that's what the Constitution says and what the original intent is. Now we enter Congress. Congress enters the fray at several points in history, but most with dealing with War Powers Resolution, mainly in 1973. So the motivation between the War Powers Resolution, it was not a law, it's a resolution, it's a joint resolution from both houses of Congress of 1973, was a frustration with the U.S. troop commitment in Vietnam and North Korea, or in South Korea.
Yeah. Right.
Neither military action was a declared war. They were, I guess, semantically called police actions, and this was kind of to circumvent some of the will of Congress, and I guess make it a little bit less harsh term and a little bit more palatable to the electorate.
I remember that so well. The dispute between, are we at war or is this a police action? I remember that. I remember so well. Of course, I served during the Vietnam War era, and I can remember that dispute going on the whole time, really.
Well, and thank you for your service, Dale. It's through your service and your fellow soldiers is how we're able to have these discussions now, and which that's hugely important. But the U.S. military in both those actions were used in support of allies against communist forces and not against direct threats against the United States. And this really came to a head when President Nixon ordered the bombing of Cambodia during the Vietnam War. So that gets us up to 1973. So let's take a look and see exactly what the War Powers Act says, or War Powers Resolution, see what it actually says.
Okay, you want to bring up in our PowerPoint here?
Let's do some pictures.
Okay. Whoop. Let me. Easy for you to say. There we go.
Okay, so the first part, let's look at the purpose and the policy. So this is direct text from the War Powers Resolution. Part A, Congressional Declaration. It is the purpose of this chapter to fulfill the intent of the framers of the Constitution of the United States and ensure that the collective judgment of both the Congress and the President will apply to the introduction of United States armed forces into hostilities or into situations where imminent involvement in hostilities is clearly indicated by the circumstances, and to the continued use of such forces or in hostilities or such situations. Okay, so that's kind of a restatement of the way they understood the Constitution and the original intent. Now we go to Part B. This is further color on this. Part B is the congressional legislative power under the necessary and proper clause. And Congress states under Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, it is specifically provided that the Congress shall have the power to make all laws necessary and proper for carrying into execution not only its own powers, but all other powers vested in the Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof. And we'll get into that here a little bit more in our summary section.
Okay.
Now, and then we look at the third part, which is Part C, is titled Presidential Executive Power as Commander-in-Chief, limitation.
Limitation. Okay.
So they
important word there, I would think.
Very, very key word. Yes. Mm-hmm. And it implies that this is a limitation that Congress is making, not necessarily the Constitution, but they cite the Constitution. The constitutional powers of the President as Commander-in-Chief to introduce United States armed forces into hostilities or into situations where imminent involvement in hostilities is clearly indicated by the circumstances are exercised only pursuant to 1, a declaration of war, 2, a specific statutory authorization, and that would be coming from Congress, or 3, a national emergency created by an attack upon the United States, its territories or possessions, or its armed forces. A good example of that would be the attack on Pearl Harbor. That was an attack by a foreign force, the Japanese, on United States homeland and United States territory, and so that implied a national emergency right there at that point in time.
Okay, now I don't want to digress here, but most recently with Iran,
yes,
wasn't that considered a national emergency? Or
well, that is.
Are you going to touch on that later?
we're going to discuss that here, but there was a dispute between the executive and the executive. President Trump acting on his executive constitutional authority and what Congress thought President Trump should do.
Okay.
And we'll kind of get into that just in just a couple minutes here.
But I know the terminology national emergency has been thrown around a great deal in discussions about the Iran bombing and so forth. So okay. It off track there.
No. That's an excellent point. That'll be a point of discussion here in just a sec.
Okay.
So in looking at this, in my opinion, I think obviously Congress has had and has issues with reading comprehension. That's not what the Constitution says. That's not what the Federalist Papers said. And remember, the Federalist Papers were written to basically lobby for passage of the Constitution and give some color, some background. It's like, okay, here's what we were thinking about when we drafted the Constitution and these individual clauses. So the Federalist Papers basically, and the Anti-Federalist Papers for that matter, give the conscience of the delegates at the 1787 convention. And so it's clear that's not what they intended. Congress passed this resolution, and President Nixon, rightly, in my view, vetoed it. Then it went back to Congress, and Congress then overrode Nixon's veto by a vote in the House of 284 to 135, and in the Senate by 75 to 18. And this was a democratically controlled Congress on both chambers at the point in time, but there were something like 250 House members that were Democrats, and I think right about 60 Democrat members of the Senate. So they did garner about 30 Republican votes in the House, and about a dozen or 15 votes in the Senate from Republicans, going against their president, the president, a member of their party.
Right.
So let's take a look and see what the major provisions of the War Powers Act actually is, and what they were trying to exert into what kind of authority or oversight they're trying to exert onto the executive.
Whoops. Did I skip a slide there or something?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. Okay. So some of the major provisions are that the president must inform Congress within 48 hours of U.S. military action. And this can be a troop deployment into a foreign theater or a bombing campaign like we just conducted in Iran. And so this is one thing that they were talking about there, and what you're talking about there, Dale, is that, Congress, mainly, some of the loudmouths on the Democrat side, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and some of the other, I'll be nice. Never mind. Some of the other members of Congress we're talking. This is
control. Stay in control here now. Okay.
Yeah, I'll keep it on the rails. All right. So they said, oh well, this is an act of war, and we did not declare war, and all this blah blah blah. I'm like, this is clearly now. This was an attack on a sovereign country, no doubt whatsoever. It was an announced attack, basically given like 60 days notice, just like Iran. You have 60 days to come clean about your nuclear program and stop the military operation, or something else is going to happen. So there was in day 61, something else happened. So, but we did not commit any troops into a foreign country, into Iran. Now they were put in harm's way, obviously, because they're going into foreign airspace. And so, but as far as a declaration of war, I think this is not like that we're going into assault the country to try to take it over and take territory. So the declaration of war thing was a little bit hyperbole, which is par for the course. But President Trump did. Now he did not give prior authorization. Prior notification to Congress is not required in the War Powers Act. It's only within 48 hours after the act happens. And I would argue that, especially in this case, and in most cases, but especially when it comes to President Trump, that was a good thing that he did not give Congress prior notification that, hey, you know what, tomorrow at
Actually, yes, that would have been leaked for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean tomorrow at 5 a.m. we're gonna have some B-2 stealth bombers take off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, and we're going to fly and we're going to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities because, Ilhan Omar, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, I mean, dozens of Democrats would have had this up on their Twitter, the social media pages, and possibly Thomas Massey too on the Republican side, and possibly Rand Paul on the Republican side as well, because they're libertarians and more isolationists. But it would have tipped off. They would have tipped off the enemy, the Iranians, and they would have been ready for us. And it would have actually put our troops in jeopardy, our pilots in jeopardy. So, but President Trump, after the campaign was conducted and the planes were on their way back, they were out of Iranian airspace and they were on their way back to the United States, and they were safe. Then President Trump did reach out to Chuck Schumer, to Hakeem Jeffries. I think Schumer's office took the call. Oddly enough, Hakeem Jeffries' office did not take the call, and then they claimed they weren't notified. But President Trump said, "Here, I've got the phone bill right here. See, it says this number, Hakeem Jeffries, right here, and you didn't answer." And so he did comply with the War Powers Act. But then the second part of this is that U.S. troops cannot be deployed for more than 60 days without congressional authorization. Okay, so we could have, hypothetically, introduced U.S. troops into Iran proper, into their sovereign territory, and to conduct operations, and they could have done that under President Trump's direction for 60 days without Congress having anything to say about it officially. They'd have plenty of say in the media. But that didn't happen. We went in, we executed a very, very precise strike, dropped 17 the massive ordnance penetrator bombs, accomplished the mission and got back out of there. And so there's really, Congress does not have a leg to stand on, because even though President Trump may or may not, I don't know what his opinion is of the War Powers Act, he did comply with exactly what the War Powers Act said. And anything to say that he didn't is nonsense. Yeah. So one of the things, since I guess what is the War Powers Act, the passage in 1970, what has it produced? And so since 1973, presidents have made over 130 reports to Congress in accordance with the War Powers Act, with use of U.S. military force. And some examples of that are the Cambodian airlift by President Nixon in 1973. That was reported to Congress. He complied with the act, even though he vetoed it. Ronald Reagan deploying troops in Beirut, Lebanon back in 1982. George Herbert Walker Bush, Bush 41, committing the military in the Persian Gulf War in 1991. That was another report that was generated. Now, there have been other instances to where the president has deployed military assets and did not report to Congress. And this has been just a little bit of some friction between the executive and the legislative branches. Like, for instance, Ronald Reagan's deployment of U.S. troops to El Salvador in 1981, that was not reported to Congress. He said, I can do that under my executive authority. Bill Clinton, when he bombed Kosovo in 1999, when he had the ethnic cleansing in the former Yugoslavia, that was some friction between Congress and Bill Clinton there. Also, Barack Obama, when he ordered attacks on Libya in 2011, he did not comply with the War Powers Act there, did not report anything to Congress. The Congress basically just read it in the news. So the push and pull has been on both sides. It's been both by presidents of both Republican presidents and Democrat presidents. So it's not exclusively to one side. Now, it does have a tendency to, whenever the president is of one party and Congress is of another party, that's when it gets a little bit more tedious and a little bit more contentious. But both parties, presidents, have quote unquote violated the War Powers Act and also complied with it. So that's kind of where we are. So what are some arguments in favor of the War Powers Act and arguments against? And there are several, but I'll just kind of hit just a couple of the major ones.
Okay.
So, like, arguments in favor of the War Powers Act is that proponents say that this is an extension of the checks and balances between the executive and legislative branches of government. They say that the Congress, that the Constitution says that the legislative branch is able to check executive authority, and vice versa, but they're really worried about the legislative checking the executive branch. And this is just merely just something that the framers left out, and this is just an extension of that doctrine. Another thing is that the U.S. military activity costs money, and that falls under Congress appropriations authority. And so they have the ability to regulate military action because Congress has sole responsibility to appropriate funds for the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two of the major arguments for.
Well, and that second one played a major role in ending the Vietnam police action.
Yes. Yep. No, you're exactly right, Dale. And the public opinion soured on that war, and and Congress basically just started cutting off the money.
Right.
And they just that's how the war ended.
Yeah.
So we'll take a look at like some arguments against the War Powers Act. And the first one, honestly, is good enough for me. It is unconstitutional. That should be period. Okay, end of discussion. I mean, that's plenty good. Whenever I mentioned that Section B of the War Powers Act said that this is just an exercise of Congress's necessary and proper authority. Well, the necessary and proper clause is not applicable because military action is not a normal function of the federal government. The necessary and proper clause doesn't apply to all areas of government activity. It just allows Congress to pass laws that make it possible for the federal government to carry out its normal course of business in existence. Obviously, war and military action is not something it's outside of that scope. Just like calling an Article 5 Convention of States meeting is outside of its scope. That's not a normal business activity of the federal government. So the necessary and proper clause does not apply in either of those situations. And then there are some disagreement even among supporters when the U.S. military acts in accordance with United Nations actions and also NATO activities as well. And so even those who support and defend the War Powers Act say, well, this is kind of a gray area because do we have to approve U.S. military action in accordance with the North Atlantic Trade Organization, which is a treaty that we've already ratified in the Congress? Where in United Nations activity as well. That's kind of a gray area. So that seems to me that really kind of even proponents' arguments in favor of the War Powers Act, that really kind of compromises and weakens their arguments. And so if we look at the War Powers Act today, and this is where I'll editorialize just a little bit my interpretation. As with most things, whenever President Trump is involved, people have lost their minds and cannot have a rational conversation around anything that involves President Trump.
Amen to that, brother. I'll tell you, it's unbelievable. Yes.
I mean, it seriously is. And it is on both sides to a certain extent. On the Trump supporter side, sometimes, that give him a little bit more latitude, a little bit more grace than what I'm willing to give him. But it's overwhelmingly on the opposite side, on the liberal side, in opposition to President Trump. It's just, he could declare, chocolate chip cookies the national cookie of the United States, and you'd have riots in the street about it. I mean, it's just whatever his name's on.
You're right.
There's a certain segment of the population that cannot think.
Yes.
whenever President Trump acts in the same way, or even to a lesser degree than past presidents, he's called a dictator, an authoritarian, or other kinds of nonsense.
Yes.
You could look at that. There have been the bombing raids that Barack Obama did into Libya, and that ultimately, I believe, brought down Muammar Gaddafi. That was a lot more extended campaign than just a 36-hour round trip bombing run from Missouri to Iran back to Missouri. So President Trump's military action, and he's actually in his first term, he actually was the first president, I believe it was like in 40 or 50 years, maybe even longer than that, not to create a new military involvement for the United States. I mean, and he's done the same thing here in his first 5 months as well.
Yeah.
My opinion, the War Powers Act is clearly unconstitutional. In looking at the text of the Constitution and the Federalist Papers, in the consensus and the mind of the delegates when they were drafting that, it's not the original intent of the Constitution. The original intent of the Constitution is that the military is held in a singular executive, now in civilian control. Now that's very important as well, because it is not most countries, or many countries, the military is in the control of like a general, or like you think of Castro and Castro's Cuba. He was a military officer, and so it's a very key distinction that the United States military is held under civilian control.
Because our president comes in as a civilian, really.
That is correct.
Not as a military officer.
That is correct.
May have served as a military officer at one time, but he comes in the office as a civilian.
As a civilian, absolutely, and they're able to draw on military military knowledge from the consultation with the Joint Chiefs, with the heads of the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines.
Yeah.
But the ultimate decision is made by a civilian, and then Congress jurisdiction here. Congress does have jurisdiction. I agree with that, but it lies within their appropriations authority. And just like what you had mentioned about Vietnam, if they oppose executive action, then they can deny funding to either that action specifically, which carries a little bit of blowback, because then you're looked at, well, you're not supporting our military, so that's a negative thing. But I think that they can kind of get around that a little bit. They can just deny funding to other executive branch agencies. Hey, you know what? This president is a big fan of education or the environment. So hey, you know what? We'll just defund those agencies. We'll kind of put some screws to you that way. We'll take your pet projects and we just won't fund them. Or with President Trump, well, you want a border wall? Okay, well, we're not going to fund that. We're not going to fund the Customs Border Patrol. We'll just defund them because we don't agree with this military action you've taken. That's where the Congress has legitimate leverage and authority and oversight of the executive branch. So one thing's for sure is we could come back 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, and as long as the War Powers Act has not been repealed, we're going to be having the same exact arguments, because these are the same arguments. There's going to be that friction, like there has been since 1973.
All right. Okay, Brett, I think that's a wrap.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Listen, thank you for taking the time to educate us on this. I think you made some very good points on this, and I certainly understand it a lot better now. So thank you very much, Brett.
Well, I appreciate the assignment. I understand a lot better myself.
All right. Thank you. Once again, my thanks to Brett for him taking the time to educate us on the War Powers Act. So hope you all enjoyed this, and everyone have a good evening. Thank you.
Well, Dale, wanted to give, just in case Brett is tuned in tonight to see this segment, wanted to give a quick shout out to him and his better half, Denise. they're celebrating a 34th anniversary. So happy
Is that
anniversary.
right? Oh, yeah. Well, happy anniversary. Happy anniversary. Yeah. Yeah. Tell you, Brett does a great job on these presentations. He really digs
Really thorough.
into it and does a good job. And we'll take advantage of him many times more, I'm sure. Okay, let's move on. Ken, tell us about that QR code up there in the corner.
Right there in that corner there. Yeah, that's our volunteer support QR code. So you will get a pop-up that will give you a place to put in your name and your email address, and that will put you in with our other supporters. That is telling us that you are supporting what we do here at COS Today. And there are a number of contributor segments that are available to you there, dating back to some of the early ones that basically just kicked us off, as well as a platform of other supporters that you can converse with and certainly share your ideas. So if you have some suggestions or want to share ideas, that's the place to do it, as well as in our chat here. But that's what that QR code is all about.
All right. Cool. Thank you very much. Well, let's take a quick listen to Maringo Mike again here.
All right.
Maringo Mike here, asking you to hit that like, subscribe, and especially that notification bell so you'll be reminded every time we go live. We really do appreciate your support. Now, back to our program.
Yeah, good. We need Maringo Mike to remind us once in a while on that. So
for sure.
Yeah. Well, we always try every weekend to give a dose of Dave's Daily Dose. One of our contributors out of the state of Minnesota. So Dave, I tell you, he generates so many of these. It's hard to pick out the one to use on. Quite honestly, I've got to get a hold of Dave and tell him, don't send me. He sends me 4 or 5 every week, and I pick one, and we never get to the other ones. You know, he does too many of them, and
we're gonna have to do a couple of extra segments some night when we're low on anything else to do. But
yeah, we could do a whole program.
With Dave's Daily Dose, yeah,
and still have some left. I think
that's right.
So
he and John Ackerman get along well, I think.
Yeah. All right, let's listen to Dave's
Daily Dose
this time, and it's about Obama. Obama revealed is what he calls this.
Ooh, okay.
So let's see.
I just clicked off a Jimmy Carville video. I just decided I'd heard enough of the nonsense because he's making stuff up as he goes along. And the program had so much going for it, too. A conversation with Bill O'Reilly is moderated by Andrew Cuomo, who said he was willing to listen. But he wasn't. Not really. To understand this whole thing, we have to unlearn some stuff. Is Epstein and Russiagate the same story? That's what Democrats and some Republicans would like you to believe. But stay tuned and pay attention. We're about to get our minds expanded. This is Dave's Daily Dose on BrokenRoadRadio.com. I'm David Allen Punt. Let's take each of these tales separately, shall we? At the beginning of the video blurb I was watching, Cuomo seemed to think that Epstein and Russiagate were the same story, or legs of the same table. Bill corrected him, but I don't know if he was listening. As Bill said, and I agree, Epstein and the files are self-contained. There's only so much there. Documents were stored, some of them sequestered by courts of law, and there doesn't seem to be much more available. Let's ask Jelaine when she gets to her very own congressional hearing, which could be soon. Someday we will know all of this. Everything gets exposed. Everything is made public. Everybody gets to see everything, even if you don't want to look at that stuff. Russiagate is the onion. Layers and layers and layers, and the information is out there. You just have to be willing to read it. Not listen to somebody else's version of what they think went on. Read it for yourself. Tulsi Gabbard has released at least 114 pages of records that weren't available before, but now they are. I haven't read them all, but I've seen the document on my computer that lays them out. John Brennan and his spy guys said over and over in the fall of 2016, Russia didn't do nothing. On December 9th, after a big meeting, they said Russia did everything. And the report included the words, "Due to high administration interest, this report is now scheduled to run tomorrow." What happened? Barack I told John Brennan he didn't like what his spy guys came up with about Trump and Russia and Hillary, and told him to come up with something else. And they did, on October 9th, 2016. I'm the kind of guy who likes to know why someone did something. If I understand why, a theory makes sense. My partner Jim dropped something into the conversation the other day suggesting that maybe Obama was taking orders from someone else. Now, my conspiratorial mind is going, it doesn't matter why Obama did or didn't do something. The someone else he was taking orders from has a motive. And now it gets scary, because now we're talking about the future of the nation, whether or not the nation lives on for another 250 years or another 250 minutes. And that's something everyone, all of us, all Americans, should be very concerned about. Why aren't we? I'm David Allen Punt.
Some good points.
Yep. Another good one from David.
So why aren't people that concerned, Dale? What's your opinion on that? I have an opinion a little bit about that. Why people aren't concerned about some of these things that really should matter to Americans. And I think it's to a certain degree, too many people are trying for their 15 minutes of fame or to hit the million view like mark on their social media content.
Who are you referring to there?
Nobody in particular. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Uh-huh.
Just saying. If you look at where people are spending their time and what they're posting on their Instagram, and other social media posts, it's like, okay, sometimes it's just purely insane. Some of the things that are being posted, and you wonder why people aren't paying more attention to things that are really should matter more to the average American. Just an opinion.
Okay, all right. Well, Ken, let's bring Maringo Mike back on here, and he wants to tell us about a Convention of States summit coming up next month in September. I tell you, the date's closing in on us, Ken. Here we're going to be doing some things to get ready for this. The dates are the September 18th through the 20th, and it's going to be held in Indianapolis. So Ken has put together, along with Maringo Mike here, put together a video about the upcoming summit. So let's play with that, and we'll come back and start wrapping up for the evening. So here we go.
All right.
Maringo Mike here with a reminder of an event you're not going to want to miss. The Race to Freedom Summit is going to be held right here in Indianapolis, September 18th through the 20th, and it's coming quicker than you think. So watch the video and get yourself registered for the Race to Freedom Summit here in Indianapolis. See you there.
Hey, Convention of States, this is Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith. We're so happy to have you here in Indiana. I'm a big supporter of an Article 5 convention. I love what you're doing. Keep driving that ball home, and welcome to Indianapolis.
We're checking in at the Sheridan. Come and join us. Protest for race and freedom. Hey, Kate Spade. Hey everyone, meet Rich from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum. He's a volunteer here. Come to the museum. You're going to love it. This is a great place. Rich comes out here once a month from St. Louis, Missouri. He volunteers this time just like you're doing. Come meet Rich at the museum.
You know, Dale, there'll be a cart like that with your name on it when you arrive, so you can check in style.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Hey, you know that this reminds me of something. I was doing a little research on what I talked about in the In Focus segment about the Speedway Slammer. Evidently, some of the early advertising on that had an Indy car is pictured with ice on the side of the car. The word ice. And evidently they had it on a car that had a number on it. And the IndyCar people objected to that because I guess it related to the number related to an active car, I guess. And so they had to redo it and take the number off of the car. So
I think that would be interesting to have them have ICE actually sponsor a car next year. That would be great.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Well, like I said, that summit's coming up on September 18th, and Ken and I have a lot to get ready for that. So we will have COS today. We'll have a table there at the summit, and we will be there to lend our experience to anyone interested in doing a live stream like we do at COS today, if they would like to do this in their state. And we will be there to assist them and give them all sorts of good advice, as well as hopefully be able to do some good interviews with various guests that are going to be there. Looking forward to it. Be a busy time for us. All right, let's just take a look now at what's coming up on COS today. And our next episode will be next Monday, the 18th. Boy, this month is flying by, Ken. I tell you. Coming up on the 18th, we finally, Larry Hudson, who does our Meet the Founders series, finally got off of George Washington, and so we recorded the first segment on Ben Franklin, and I'm telling you, I'm learning some stuff already about Ben Franklin that I did not know. Did you know he was like 81 years old when the Constitution was signed?
You mentioned that. I think he might have been
I've said that before.
If not the oldest, the oldest, if not close to it, I guess.
Yeah, but what's very so interesting is, given his age at that time, the age difference between him and other key players like Washington and Madison, and there was like 20 years difference in some of those ages. So very, very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So that's coming up on the 18th, next Monday, and of course we'll lead off with another In Focus segment. Then coming up on our roundtable, which we do every fourth Monday of the month, John Ackerman hosts that, and that'll be coming up on the 25th of August, and the topic's going to be birthright citizenship. So I think John emailed us all the layout that he's come up with on this. I haven't. Did you take a look at it yet, Ken?
I have not. I will.
I haven't looked at it either.
I have to tune in and look at that. Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be interesting. Yeah, John does a good job on these. Okay, now I do want to mention this, that the first Monday in September, which will be September 1, that's Labor Day, and we typically just do a best of broadcast that night. So
either that, or we might just run a whole night worth of Dave's Daily Doses. Who knows?
Maybe that's when we should do that. That's a good idea. Good idea. Maybe that should be the day we do that. That is a good idea. Quite honestly,
we could kind of mix it up with some of John Ackerman's that maybe we didn't get to or whatever.
Yeah, we could throw in some other things, and but about every 5 minutes. Well, time for another Dave's Daily Dose. All right, good idea. Good idea. As usual, folks, if you have any questions or comments about our broadcast, please feel free to email us. raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. All right, Ken, speaking of John Ackerman, let's take a look at another one of his COS Basics installments, and we'll be right back then to wrap everything up for this evening.
All right.
Well, now that's not. What did I do there? I guess
giving people a chance to get the QR code for the summit, but we already covered that.
I think I forgot to remove that last Maringo Mike video on the summit. So, okay, I think we're ready to go now.
All right.
John Ackerman for Convention of States, Indiana, continuing with COS Basics. Today, I borrow another point from attorney Rita M. Peters. There are numerous redundant safeguards on an Article 5 convention process. Attorney Peters lays out 4 safeguards. Okay, 4. Number 1, the scope of authority for the convention is defined by the topic specified in the 34 applications that trigger the convention. Any proposals beyond that scope would be out of order, and any single delegate could object to their consideration. Number 2, even if no one objected to an out-of-order proposal, and/or even if the convention delegates had installed a parliamentarian who refused to sustain an objection, state legislatures can recall any delegates who exceed their authority or instructions. This is because convention delegates are the agents of their state legislature. That's a legal term. They are agents of the legislature, and they are subject to the instructions given by their legislature. As a matter of basic agency law, any actions taken outside the scope of the delegate's authority would be null and void. Number 3, even if a majority of convention delegates went rogue and state legislatures failed to stop delegates from acting beyond their powers, and Congress nevertheless sent the illicit amendment proposals to the states for ratification, the courts would declare the proposals null and void. And the courts have an excellent track record of enforcing clear, technical matters of procedure and law. Fourth and finally, even if all those protections failed. It borders on insanity to think that 38 states, the requirement for ratification, to think that 38 states would ratify an amendment proposed under these circumstances borders on insanity. And so I repeat Attorney Rita M. Peters' point. There are numerous and redundant safeguards on the Article 5 convention process.
All right.
I was kind of waiting for a boom at the end of that, but
No, not tonight. Not tonight.
not tonight.
Well, Ken, that's a wrap for us tonight. I thank everyone for tuning in, and I think we've had another good show. Looking forward to next week, and folks, we've got some topics in the works coming up. Primarily, I guess we're looking toward September now. We've got some good topics, I think, lined up for, and I think you're going to find them very, very interesting. So, and we're going to be bringing on some young people for our In Focus segment. We're working on that very diligently. So I think you're going to find that to be even more interesting segment. So you won't have to listen to us old dudes all the time. So we're doing our best to try and make everything better for everyone. So Ken, any last words or comments or any viewer comments that you want to show or anything?
No, we had our comment posted up. Sheila had to run, but she appreciated me. Didn't appreciate me so much butchering her last name. I got it. She didn't.
Oh, is that right?
She didn't correct me. It's Munkin. So I didn't quite get that right, but I apologize for that. And Sheila had to run off to do some things, so that's it on the comments. But all I can say is, well, the kids are going back to school, which to me is insane. But it kind of balances out the routine a little bit now for everybody, I guess.
Yeah, it does. All right, Ken, have a good evening. Good
You
night,
too, bud.
everyone.
Yep, good night.
See you next week.
Marengo Mike here with a reminder that our work to raise the bar on making our federal government accountable to the people is only halfway done. We need to grow our grassroots army of citizens every day to fulfill the vision of our forefathers and keep our land free and prosperous. So, if you have never signed the petition to show your support, use that QR code and do that now. While you're there, why not kick it up a notch and volunteer for many of the positions available where your talents can make a difference as we march into a new year. Thank you, and God bless.